Good morning, everybody. Happy end of February. It's hard to believe that it's already time for March.
I know.
Well, obviously you can see Trevor looks a little different today. Trevor is out of town, and today I have PJ Roberson. Probably lots of you know PJ, but if not, we're going to get to know PJ in just a second. We have a good lineup, but first I hope everybody had a happy Valentine's Day. That was our last show. That day we were in red, and today we've moved on to the next month. That's right, to blue. All right, so let's get started with who is PJ. So she is one of my very dear friends, and I have gotten to know her through Moorefield, and since Trevor's out of town today, it was a perfect opportunity to highlight PJ. So PJ, tell us, you've been doing this about 7 years?
Yeah, so about 7 years. I got licensed in 2017.
Okay.
And immediately joined Moorefield. Just felt like they were the perfect fit.
Now you went away for college and then to Charleston, right?
I did. So I actually went away for high school and then college.
Okay.
And then kind of couldn't figure out where I wanted to be, but somehow landed back here.
But all your family's here.
Most of them, yeah.
Most of your family's here. That's right. That's right. PJ's dad's actually the mayor. So again, yes. Okay. So when you came back to Rocky Mount, did you know you wanted to do real estate?
I really didn't.
Okay.
This was not my plan after college. I was an art history major, arts management. I worked in art galleries, did event design.
So some creative aspects for sure.
Oh, yeah,
and
very
operational.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I've always loved houses, so my dad just encouraged me. He's like, get your real estate license. If you absolutely hate it, we can figure out plan B.
Clearly you didn't hate it.
No, clearly I've loved it.
And it's been a really great fit for you. And your transition to this point 7 years later has kind of evolved. But I love what PJ's story is in real estate is that she started really with the lower income investment properties, and that has become truly a bread and butter of your job. I mean, of what you do.
Yeah. So I really think I just started really wanting to sell something, so I would sell anything. So, I mean, I think the least expensive house I sold was like $10,000. And I mean, it slowly morphed into that being about a good 50% of my business, which I love.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I still work with my retail buyers and sellers, but investors are just great.
Yeah, so I think what I've kind of learned from PJ, as you know, I've been doing this just under 2 years, but what I've learned from PJ is the investor market is a really interesting market that everybody loves to talk about.
Yes.
Right? Because everybody wants, I feel like, I shouldn't say everybody, but so many people want to dabble in a flip because they've seen HGTV, or they want to dabble in an Airbnb, or they want to dabble in a true long-term rental because people ask about it all the time. Don't you feel like?
They do. Yeah, and HGTV, bless. I mean, I love HGTV, but wow, that has, I think, made our job a little bit harder.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. In a lot of
Yeah.
ways. But I like what you said about the investment property is so some, like you just referenced, maybe the first property you sold was $10,000. But these investors are savvy, and they know that they can spot this particular property. They can start crunching the numbers on what they can do in that property to add immediate value, and then they're kind of processing how long they need to rent it or sell it in order to make a profit, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I do work with a lot of different types of investors. So I've got my flippers, but I also have my buy and hold people. But some of the buy and hold only hold the property for a year or two, and then they sell it. Like you said, the numbers just work, and it makes more sense to sell it then.
And what I really loved, I've gotten to meet a few of PJ's investors, not all of them, but what I've loved is each of them seem to have their niche, so to speak, that works for them. And so I'm only going to highlight an example of one, and you can go with another, but I remember you referencing this one, really likes brick 3-bedroom ranches, because he's figured out how that property is renovated and marketed, and so to speak. Okay.
And those are just easy.
So tell us an example of another one that people tend to gravitate towards.
So another one, I mean, I've got a few different examples, but we have investors that just really like multifamily. They love how they can
Duplex, triplex.
We don't have a ton of those, I did just sell a triplex the other day. But
Cool.
yeah, so we don't have a ton of those. Also, some people just look at the price point. So 150 and under, if it's in the right area for them to get a certain rent, and usually it goes around the 1% rule, I'd say is what most investors or starter investors like to.
So tell them
Like
what
to
that
do.
means.
So the 1% rule is if you, and I might butcher this, but
Mm-hmm.
but if you buy it, you want to get at least it's a 10% return.
Okay.
I think it's a
over
10%.
10 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Or
okay.
no, so for example, if you buy it for 90,000, you want to be able to rent it for at least 900 a month.
Got it. Okay. Okay. I have heard that rule of thumb too. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, most of these investors tell you what their goal around that is, right? And then you can, and so then they're backing into what the sales price needs to be.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
And so I'll submit a lot of lowball offers. They don't always stick, but yeah.
The interesting thing about the investor is there's really no emotion typically in that property, right?
Not really, which is kind of refreshing, especially because I do 50%-ish residential. So it's kind of refreshing to not have the emotions of, oh, we're selling my childhood home, or oh, damn it, they're going to paint my front door the color I didn't choose. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that part's interesting to me too. Just the lack of so many things that Trevor and I have talked about on this show have been traditional residential real estate of a resale home, and so we've talked about how important the appraisal is and how important the home inspection and all of these elements that for the average buyer that is important, but for the investor very often they're paying cash.
Usually it's cash or hard money loan. They really hardly get inspections.
Because they have been efficient enough at this point to
To
know. So, knowing that, if someone watching this show is interested in an investment property, let's talk them through what would be nice in a rental. What are some tricks and tips that you might give them?
Like what other
Yes,
investors
what
are
you've
looking
learned.
for?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
So you definitely want to stick with the numbers rule, but I do think it's important to know how the numbers work on your end. That's number one. 3 bedrooms tend to rent the best,
Okay.
from what I've heard. 2 bedrooms work, but 3 bedrooms are ideal.
What about the bathrooms? Are they particular about those?
I mean, I think everybody would love 2 bathrooms, but those don't seem to be the maker to break it.
Okay. That's helpful to share. Yeah. All right. So why Rocky Mount? Why do you feel like so many investors are gravitating towards Rocky Mounts?
So I think the largest one is the proximity to Raleigh. I think Rocky Mount reminds people of maybe Durham or Atlanta 20, 30 years ago, and how it's grown and then it spreads out.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, so Raleigh, or I guess, so how one of my investors explained this to me a few months ago is he picked Rocky Mount because it reminded him of Atlanta 20 years ago. So you had all these smaller towns around Atlanta that people were commuting from, but the price points were not as expensive. It was a little cheaper. And then as Atlanta kept growing and it expanded, the prices in the surrounding areas increased.
Okay. And so he's equating Atlanta to Raleigh. And yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then this is within an hour of Raleigh, and they are really priced out of Raleigh. Trevor and I
Very
have
much
really
so.
talked about price per square foot in Raleigh. Yes.
Yeah. And I think another thing, I mean, we've got a great proximity on 95 and 64. So the location's just great. And then some of my other investors have started investing here just because of CSX. And they started hearing about that a few years ago. And they were like, well, this just makes sense.
Right. Because there's all roads lead to Rocky Mount, it feels like, right? Roads are real. Okay, something else PJ and I really bonded over after I started in real estate, and we've had a good time, is social media. That is, I can see Roger kind of laughing over there, but social media is really something that speaks to probably, I'm 41, PJ's 31, our generation, the generations above us, and the generations below us. Because it is accessible right here or almost anywhere. So PJ, she's way better than I am.
Oh my God, Sterling.
But talk to us about kind of some of the platforms that you use to help your clients sell their homes or help your buyers see additional properties that they may not see otherwise.
Yeah, so I really love Facebook and Instagram.
Okay,
I think
me too.
Instagram's my favorite. And I've actually gotten some good leads off of Instagram. And I love just advertising.
What is something that you typically do on Instagram? Do you use stories or posts or reels?
Stories, and then I love a good reel. I mean, you know that.
Yes.
You do
Me
too.
too, yes. So we've used this multiple times to highlight a property in kind of that 60 seconds or less. And because it allows for someone to not have to click on each picture, and then we can kind of video or film some of the key points of the property, and then they can just watch it. So it has kind of been fun for us, but also usually engages the buyer in a different way, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully we're going to do a reel about today's experience on WIG too. But anyway, I do feel like social media is one of those outlets that for a long time was kind of untapped in real estate, and certainly there's YouTube and podcasts, which you have as well. So do you want to highlight some of those?
So I just have the YouTube for now. I would love to do a podcast, but that's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
I know you've mentioned that too.
Yep. We did one together with Twin County Media.
Yes.
If you all ever follow Twin County Media, that's Simmons and Harris. Benton Moss is who kind of leads that, and he interviewed us. But he interviews people around the community, not just real estate. So all sorts of things happening around Rocky Mount.
Yeah, and that's a great podcast. I love listening to all of his new episodes.
I don't know if that would be considered social media or not. I assume.
I'd go with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even though it's not necessarily the visual component, more audible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, one of the last things we wanted to talk about, because I know our time is running short, is kind of if PJ's been doing this 7 years and I've been doing this nearly 2 years, what kind of we think is going to happen in 2024 based on what we've seen over the past few years and kind of what the first 2 months of the year have looked like.
For me, I mean, everything's going pretty well. I think investors are still looking. It slowed down a little bit there for a second. But I mean, I, on the residential side, had an open house and then put that under contract within 2 days after. So, I mean, I think things are still moving. Just depends on price point, who's moving back, but they're still moving. So I'm excited about 2024.
I totally agree. We've talked about this some with the interest rates, with last year them being just over 8%. That's kind of hard to stomach. And I've shared with you all before that I've gotten one under contract earlier this year that was an FHA, and it was just under 6. So that is a huge difference for the average buyer. And but yet the home prices have not really fallen, so most homes are still holding their value, and the interest rates are really helping spur people to buy again. I saw this, it was on social media, of course. I saw this thing last night that referenced, it was kind of a spoof on anyone that purchased a home at the start of COVID and thinking they were making a bad decision. Somebody was telling them they shouldn't have done that. And then COVID came, and obviously we know what it did to the market. It exploded the market, right? So I heard someone reference last night that if you bought a home in January, February of 2024, then you were essentially the same buyer that bought at the beginning of COVID. You were the smart buyer, because the later the year goes, the more it's trending. With an election year, things usually continue to drop. The projection and the interest rates continue to drop. The more busier the market is projected to be later this year. So let's hope that's true.
Yes. Oh my God, that's awesome.
PJ, are there any final things you want to leave with the audience? We really appreciate having PJ today. It would have been just me without Trevor here, so I'm so glad she was here. Like I said, she has really been a great friend to me since I've been at Moorefield, and She has done a lot with truly the buyer and seller, and also has been a great support for those in investment world. So
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me today.
yeah,
This has
thank
been
you.
great.
Thank you for coming. So always the Moorefield number, if you have any questions for myself or PJ, the number is 252-442-8900. And of course, PJ is on social media and I'm on social
Yes.
media. So we'd love for you to follow us. Thank you all so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Bye.